All right, well, let's get started on this bye week trade deadline stuff. What do you guys want to talk about first? Little trade deadline speculation.
So I'm going to talk about first. I wore my Justin Smith Super Bowl jersey, the one that I got at the Super Bowl, because after the bye, this is when the Niners go on their run to the next Super Bowl. So that's fine.
Yeah.
That was on purpose.
I remember when you got that jersey, I helped convince you to get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyways, we can start wherever you want. I just wanted to say that was it was an intentional choice for this one.
All right, so the good vibes are flowing already. That's good. Oh, they're nice.
My
CMC's
McCaffrey
return.
jersey is intentional as well.
Yep.
Yeah. So CMC just had his practice window open today. And John Feliciano for those who care.
Oh.
Little depth on the O-line. I saw this stat though. Kyle Shanahan record before the bye week, regular season, 16-30.
Oh, I didn't know it was that bad.
After the bye, 36-16.
Wow.
Crazy.
Wow.
So I don't know why that is, but this team gets cooking after the bye.
Well, hopefully they can do it again.
Yeah, they need to. And speaking of the bye, I have this there's this graph that was kind of floating around about rest and rest advantage, rest disadvantage. Teams that have the most rest advantage at the top: Ravens, Vikings, Patriots. Niners all the way down at the bottom. Minus 21 days. I do feel bad for the Bucks. They're playing right now Monday night, and then they got a short week against the Niners, who are coming off on a bye.
Is this the whole season, Ryan, or is this so far?
This is the whole season.
Okay.
So yeah, the Niners obviously they played the Chiefs coming off the bye, played the Cowboys coming off the bye. They play another team coming off a bye later in the season. I forget who, but the Niners are probably getting their 1 week right now where they actually have a rest advantage. Let's talk about the second half of the season. I got the schedule pulled up right here. So, Bucks, Hawks, Packers, Bills, Bears, Rams, Dolphins, Lions, Cardinals. Tough schedule. It's one of the toughest schedules in the league as far as the second half of the season is concerned. Cardinals are in first place of the division right now. They actually have one of the easiest remaining schedules, maybe even the easiest. I can't remember exactly.
Wow.
When you take a look at this, though, how do you see this 49ers finishing out the second half of the season? We know they get hot after the bye. Shanahan clearly spends a lot of time in the lab during the bye, tweaking whatever he needs to tweak. They got McCaffrey possibly coming back.
Yeah.
I do expect them to win this weekend at the Bucks, but we'll get into the Bucks stuff maybe later this week. How do you see the second half of this season going right here?
I'm seeing 7-2 here, with the losses being to the Bills and the Lions. I think we're going to beat the Packers. I'm not super convinced that they're this elite juggernaut team. I do think we'll beat the Packers. I bet as long as Tua's healthy, that Dolphins game is going to be sneaky competitive, but I think we could beat them. I think we'll beat the Bucks. I think we'll beat every team on here except for the Lions and the Bills. And the reason I say the Bills is just because Josh Allen's a freak and he's torn the Niners up before. I could see us struggling against him, especially since he's mobile. And then the Lions are just probably the best team in the NFL. Like, I'll straight up say I think they're better than the Niners. And I just think that they'll beat the Niners because they're better. As long as everyone's like playing their starters and everything like that. I don't know. That's pretty deep into the season. So maybe there's some implications there. But if everyone's healthy and playing their starters, I'm going to say 7-2. What about you, Steven?
I mean, that's probably right and optimistically right. I don't know how much the Bills have really been tested. I think the Niners are going to beat the Bills.
Yeah.
I think that the Bills are not as good. I know Josh Allen is the man. I think they're just not as good as a team overall. And it's a night game, so I feel like the whole East Coast advantage thing kind of goes away for the East Coast team. In fact, I think there's some data that suggests that West Coast teams playing night games on the East Coast actually have an advantage. But whatever, it's going to be December in Buffalo, so that's also kind of a wild card. But I think the Niners are going to beat the Bills. I think the Lions game is going to be real tough, and I agree with you that right now the Lions are the better team, and I think the Lions will be super motivated to beat the Niners after the playoffs last year. But I also, I don't know. I mean, I could see them beating both the Bills and Lions and then blowing games against teams that we expect them to win. Like I could see them losing to the Bears at home in something ridiculous that we, would be like, why? And then losing, I don't know, maybe losing to the Dolphins, like you said, could be a sneaky competitive game that they otherwise should win. So I'm hoping that it's 7-2. I mean, they could beat all these teams. Honestly, when they play well, they could beat all these teams, but they could also lose. They could go 4-5. If they're not careful and they play the way they've been playing. I want to give Ryan a chance to weigh in here too, but I was thinking about this earlier today. It's funny how, we look at this team as if I look at this team, I'll speak for me, as if they've underachieved and they blew those games against the Rams and the Cardinals. So that happened. They lost those games. They deserve to get the criticisms they get for those games, but they were clearly the better team in both of those games. And I don't think that's just my Niner fandom speaking, or showing through. I think that they outplayed them and then they cost themselves in both games. And so it's like, I feel like this is really a 6-2 team that has a 4-4 record right now. And so if you judge them that way, I do think that it should be at least 7-2. But because they have already proven to have the ability to blow the games that they should win and to beat themselves, nothing is certain. So, anyways, I feel like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, but that's kind of the way I look at it.
Well, this team is played so up and down. You kind of have to. I tend to. I guess I might agree with Steven. I feel like there's games in here that they could beat some of the tough games, but then blow games that they shouldn't. They could lose to the Bucks. They could lose to the Seahawks. But yeah, I know. Gino, what is he? 0-6 now against the Niners? I guess not. But that's the thing about this Niners team this year is like they haven't really done anything to give me confidence that they're gonna just go 7-2 through these 9 games. I want to ask Jason because Jason, you feel pretty confident that they're gonna go 7-2. Like I feel like that might be based on what they've done in past years, where they, like I mentioned earlier, Kyle Shanahan's record post-bye, and they get hot, and McCaffrey's coming back, and there's reason for optimism. But I haven't seen very much from them this season that makes me think that they're capable of going 7-2 through this run. To Steven's point, I could see them beating the Bills as well, because that's a Sunday night game. We know the Niners get up on prime time, but I could see them losing to the Packers. So Jason, why do you feel so confident that this team is gonna go 7-2? What have you seen from them this season that makes you think they're gonna turn the switch on?
Well, I've just seen glimpses of what they can and what they should be. I know the talent. I know the coaching staff deserved a lot of criticism this season, in my opinion, but I do still think Kyle Shanahan is still a really good coach, still a really good play caller. And just knowing the talent, knowing that we typically do really well the second half of the season. There's some tough opponents on here. I'm not going to lie. I don't think any of these teams are a cakewalk by any means. Even the Bears could get hot if Kalen Williams has a good game. The Cardinals actually scare the hell out of me, or the heck out of me. And the Rams are a little bit scary too. So there's no easy game on here, but I don't think there's any team on here that is like better than the Niners and should beat them, other than the Lions and then the Bills, maybe. I don't know. I'm just down more on the Packers than I think other folks are, and I don't know. I'm just not too scared of the Packers for some reason. Um, Definitely not scared of the Seahawks. I feel like that is the one game. I feel like that's gonna might be the easiest game out of even more so than the Bears and the Dolphins. Just with the way Geno's playing this season, I don't think they're that great of a defense, so on and so forth. But to answer your question, I think just what I've seen the first half of the season, and I want to believe in the times where they have been that dominant team, and I know that they can be that dominant team. And then we're talking, Juwan Jennings, Christian McCaffrey, um, Feliciano, Jake Moody. Those are less impactful, but they're coming back too. And then Drake Greenlaw around the corner. Um, Maybe Mooney Ward starts playing better the second half of this season. I feel like he's had a rough first half of the season, but I know he's still capable of playing at a really high level. Our secondary is better. This young infusion of talent, hopefully still continuing to ascend as we go into the second half of the season. I just think that we have a heck of a roster. I think we have a pretty darn good coaching staff. And I think we're just better than all these teams on here, except for the Lions and then the Bills. Depends if Josh Allen just goes crazy, he's going to be really tough to beat. But yeah, it just comes down to that I just think the Niners are better than all these teams except the Lions.
I hear you. So I think I hope you're right, by the way. I think I tend to agree with Steven where I feel like there should be a 6-2 team, but they have a 4-4 record because they've blown those games to the Rams and Cardinals. And because of that, I just feel like they're gonna do that. They're gonna find some team on this list and they're gonna be up by 2 scores at halftime and they're gonna give it up. And I don't know who that's gonna be. It might be the Packers. Um I guess I do kind of agree with Chase in some ways too. Like the Bears, the Dolphins, the Seahawks don't scare me. The Niners have to go. They have to go 3-0. They have in the division. They got to beat the Cardinals. They got to beat the Rams. They got to beat the Seahawks. Outside that, I mean, they could go 500 for the rest of those games, or I guess it would be like 4-3-2 or whatever. But they have to beat the Seahawks, the Rams, and the Cardinals. Those would be the most important games of this entire stretch.
So if they do that, Ryan, if they go 6-3, go 500 in the other games, and they win their division games, they go 6-3. That puts them at 10-7. Do you think that's enough to get in?
Yes, in the NFC, I do. And that's probably good enough to win the division. Seems like the NFC West is just full of mid teams, not bad teams, not great teams, just everyone's sitting around 4-4, 5-4. I think 10-7. Shoot, if the Cardinals go 10-7 and they have a tiebreaker, the Niners have to beat the Cardinals.
Yeah.
Like that's
Yes.
a big game.
That Week 18
Huge.
game could be a division championship game.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, it could be. And the Lions game, the way the Lions are playing right now, they could be resting. They could be resting people. They could have the number 1 seed tied up by week 17, although typically you would rest week 18. So they'd probably play week 17 to, they might be locking up the number 1 seed by that time though, but it would be really cool to see Niners Cardinals for the division title, like 2019 Niners Seahawks winner. That was a big game because it wasn't just the division; it was number 1 seed was also on the line.
Well, even
Yep.
even in 2021, it wasn't for the division, but if the Niners lost to the Rams, they wouldn't have made the playoffs, right? And so they
Yeah,
have this history of needing to win the final game against a division opponent.
yeah, those games are a lot of fun. I love when the playoffs start a little early.
Yeah.
You get 1 or 2 games you got to get in. Although it puts a lot of stress on the team, obviously, which is not ideal. But coasting into the playoffs on a bye, that is great for rest and stuff. But that has its detriments too. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I know you asked Chasen the question, like, why do you think 7-2? And I was going to say, in addition to the reinforcements that he mentioned, which I think is a good reason for optimism, the other thing that I guess I'm hoping for, maybe more than like saying will happen, is just the veteran team switch gets flipped. And like they know, like now we can't screw around anymore. Like, we might have had some games where we thought we could just show up and win it, or we got up big and we thought the other team would go away, but we didn't put them away. And look what happened. And so I'm just hoping that they've learned their damn lesson. And my point that I was making about them being a 6-2 team that has a 4-4 record, that was kind of in response to your question about what have they shown you to make you think they could do it. To me, they have not played a single complete game yet this season. They've not played one good full game. You could take that either way, positive or negative, right? But I feel like they've also had some bad luck. And this might be my Niner bias coming through, but just in some of the games that they've lost, it feels like whether it's a bad call or like, oh man, that's kind of a fluky thing that would happen. There's been some bad breaks that they've had that have contributed. They've also made bad plays and had poor execution. So it's not just the bad breaks, but it's been a combination of multiple things that have led to this. And it's like, things have not gone well. They've had a bunch of injuries. We all know the stuff that's happened. It has not been a good season, and they're still 4-4. So like, I guess it's kind of the flip side of, yeah, they blew those games. Yeah, they've earned our, skepticism about whether or not they can do it because of what they've done. But the fact that things haven't gone well and they're still in it for right now also makes me think, they could very well get hot. They could beat every team on that list. I'm not saying they will, but they very well could become the hottest team and just rampage their way to a Super Bowl. And of course, that would be my fever dream. But it's not out of play. I don't feel like what this team has shown, like, because of the glimpses we've seen of good football when they play it, it's like, yeah, if you guys can just stay on your P's and Q's, there's no reason to think that they can't go all the way.
They almost did that last year. Your fever dream, come
Yeah,
out of the
yeah,
bye, win 10 straight to the Super Bowl.
yeah, exactly.
Man, if they could have capped that off, that would have been pretty special.
That's
Um,
basically what they did back in '94, the last time that they won the Super Bowl. They
mhm.
they screwed around early in the season, and then all of a sudden got hot and just rode it all the way through.